Larry, the Pentagon report really putting this out on China's growing military capabilities. This year's report, it kind of shows that in the longer term, we're going to see some pretty high stakes in terms of this already complex relationship.
That's right. And with all the other pressures between the U.S. and China, this adds to the mix substantially. You mentioned the big theme that we saw in this 200-page report, and his annual report. The big theme this year is that they're approaching the full land, sea, and air triad of nuclear capabilities. And they also are predicting that China will continue its buildup. They say it has about 200 nuclear warheads now and predicts at least doubling that in a decade, which it says, the Pentagon analysis says, is more than China needs for the, quote, minimum deterrent that it describes as its goal.
Larry, what do outside analysts say of these findings?
Well, it's interesting. Amy Wolf, who we talked to from the Congressional Research Service, so it's a nonpartisan analyst arm here in Washington, she called it something of an alarmist view. One thing she points out is that at least when it comes to the U.S. and the Soviet Union and now Russia, a triad is seen as something of a reassuring approach in that you don't, it's stabilizing because it reduces the vulnerability that a nuclear-powered country has against retaliation. So it may lower the temperature. But also, there's a sense that we're still talking about an out of context comparison. Director of the Arms Control Association said that the estimates still leave you with Russia having a much larger and more dangerous to the U.S. arsenal than China. They're talking about China having 400 warheads eventually. Well, the U.S. has 3,800 and Russia has 4,300. So that a little perspective there on where China stands as a nuclear power.
Given the perceptions that come out of this report, though, does this give impetus or add sort of, I guess, fire to those in America that say that the country needs to modernize its own nuclear force?
Well, yes, and I will emphasize that this report has lots of detailed information. It's done by intelligence and military intelligence experts, so it's not purely, although the Chinese government will say this, is not purely a propaganda document. It's studied, I think, by both sides. Still, it can't be removed from its context. The Pentagon is always seeking funds, and in this case, funds to modernize its entire nuclear triad. And, of course, the Trump administration has many conflicts with China. And in terms of nuclear weapons, the Trump administration argues that Russia should agree to allow China into any talks on extending their nuclear agreement. So there's a lot of context here that this plays into, but a report that one assumes that the Chinese intelligence experts will be reading seriously to determine what the U.S. knows and what it claims.